Many of us, I'm expressing my own views and my own feelings right now, but the views and feelings of many, I believe, are now, if there was any doubt, and are quite certain, I don't think there ever was very much doubt about this from the very outset of this, the beginning of this war. But today it seems almost certain that Netanyahu and his government plan to somehow wind down this war and end it. And well, they will claim victory, but it will not be, that will be a false claim, because Hamas will still be in Gaza, and they will probably still have at least some hostages in their possession.
Correct.
And it seems this will simply be one more example of Israel in general and Netanyahu's inability, Israel's inability and Netanyahu's inability to act, as we have said before, in a visionary, resolute, long-term manner, in order to bring about true strategic change in the long term.
Our military strategy and tactics in Gaza are really dictated by hostage diplomacy more than strategic vision. You're 100% right that it's likely we're going to end this war without a victory over Hamas. Hamas wins by surviving. It doesn't matter in what form. If they are still intact, and as of last count, they've still got about 40,000 men under arms. This is something that, it's just incredible to think of, like Deir al-Bala, which is now being somewhat invaded by our forces, where they've been able to survive because that's where we assume they have the hostages. We have subordinated common sense, basic survival instincts, the needs of the state and the needs of the Jewish people to which, I'm sorry, they should have been written off. I'm sorry to put it this way, but too much was at stake to allow our strategy in Gaza to be dictated by the survival or the retrieval of these hostages, because it gave the power actually to the Hamas. We were forced to enter into negotiations with Hamas for the rescue of some of these people. And as I've always used this analogy, that when a submarine is in danger of sinking, the commanders are ordered to close off the injured part of the submarine, which may include living sailors, condemning them to death in order to save the boat and the rest of the crew. Well, that same logic applies here with the hostages. Our number one strategic priority should be the complete and unqualified destruction of Hamas. And if we do that, and we annex Gaza, and we repopulate it with Jews, which is it's part of our biblical heartland, then we will have strategic victory in a way that impresses the Arabs. That is, we've annexed land. We've killed the enemy and we've annexed land. They didn't win. Yes, we lost hostages. Okay, I mean, that's war. But the left has been very good at changing the priorities of this war. And people have thought, have accused me of being a heartless monster for saying this. But I'm sorry, the hostages, in comparison to the needs of the state, just don't count. I'm sorry.
Allow me, Jonathan, to suggest a different term. It's not the needs of the state; it is the needs of the Jewish people, the Jewish nation.
Okay, I'm making maybe a false confluence there, but it's the needs of the Jewish people globally. Because if we validate the effectiveness of hostage taking, there isn't a Jew in the world that will be safe.
Precisely. That is absolutely correct. And that is That is what halakha, Jewish law, teaches us explicitly. And this is the reality of warfare throughout human history. You cannot possibly point to another country that, in the midst of a war for its survival, was willing to surrender or to forego victory in order to save some POWs, shall we say, even if we're talking about hundreds or thousands.
Or to feed the enemy.
Or to feed the enemy. In other words, to wage war, as war has always been waged in human affairs, including by means such as siege. That is a normal reality of war. It's not as if the Allies were concerned with how much food the German populace had, shall we say, in May or April, in March 1944, or how many buildings were left intact, or anything like that, or in Japan for that matter,
Or if there were
in
safe
fact,
zones,
where in fact
if there were
hunger.
for the good Germans and the German civilians and the Japanese civilians. This war has turned logic on its head completely, and the left and Hamas has actually turned our love for our fellow Jews into a suicide pact. That's what's happened. And I blame the left as much as Hamas for doing that.
We can and must blame both of those actors, the left, the Israeli left, the Erev Rav, the mixed multitude within amongst us who are always work against the Jewish people's aims and welfare. But also, it must be stated, to be perfectly honest and objective, Netanyahu cannot be let off the hook. It is Netanyahu, let us remember, who in 2011, according to the Gregorian calendar, Tavshin Ain Aleph, according to our calendar, of his own initiative, without such pressures being brought to bear on him, decided to go ahead with the disastrous Gilad Shalit hostage deal, whereby 1,027 arch terrorists were released for one Israeli soldier, and we got ourselves Yahya Sinwar and the rest of his leadership, much of which is no longer with us, thank God. But there will always be those who will replace them, because they are all the same Islamo-Nazis when it comes down to it, and they've all been indoctrinated in the same way. It was Netanyahu's deliberate decision and choice to do that at that time, and that directly and indirectly over a period of years brought about the current situation, the current war, the massacre of the 7th of October, etc., etc. Netanyahu is, and that's because, as I've said before, and I will say again, whether some people choose to hear this or to ignore it is up to them. The fact is, Netanyahu, when all is said and done, is a liberal humanist. And a liberal humanist cannot possibly win against Islamo-Nazis.
He's a globalist also.
So
he doesn't understand
that's the bottom line.
Our values deserve to be defended. He doesn't believe in that. Our values as Jews.
He pays lip service to these things, and I think he even would like to defend some of those values to which you refer, but the liberal humanist side of him does not allow him to act accordingly. And that is our tragedy. That is the tragedy of the Jewish people, or one of the tragedies, shall we say, of the Jewish people at this point in history. And that is why we need a totally different type of leadership, because it has to be admitted, I think, finally. Again, I had no doubt about this going back nearly 2 years, and going back before that as well. But certainly today, I think many Israelis will be forced to wake up and realize and admit the truth, and that is that there will not be true and complete victory, and we have just kicked the can down the road for another period of time, guaranteeing that our children and grandchildren will find themselves in the same situation and will have to deal with it once again. And that is an unacceptable outcome for the great Bibi Netanyahu to have brought about. It's simply not acceptable. It's unsatisfactory on every possible level. And on that entirely disheartening note, but objectively true, frank, not pleasant to a Jewish ear or to any reasonable person, I think, but objectively true and accurate, I think will wrap things up for today, Jonathan. I thank you for
Very
your
good. My pleasure, Rav. My
I
pleasure.
thank you once again for sharing your very precious time with us and for your insights, and let us hope and pray for better days.
Amen.
Bezrat Hashem. Besaroth Tovoth, good tidings, Shalom Unisahon, peace and victory.
Amen.
Shalom, shalom.
Shalom, Rav.